In this video, we will show you how to set up screen time for your student's iPad. First, open up System Preferences. Then you'll need to sign into Apple ID. You can either sign in manually using a username and password, or you can use another Apple device that you have around that's already signed into your Apple ID. In this case, I will use another device to sign into mine. Follow the prompts on screen and it'll show you how you should sign in. It will take a few minutes for the sign-in process to complete. I edited out this process for the sake of the video. Once you've gone through this process, scroll down to screen time on the left-hand side. Before jumping into some of the screen time settings, there's two things you should definitely change. Towards the bottom in screen time, there's an option to share across devices. I definitely recommend turning this off as this will affect your personal devices if you're trying to just manage your students' devices. To turn on screen time, select Set up screen time for family, and then hit Continue. On this screen, you can invite other members of your family to join into your screen time family by sending them a link. I'm going to skip this step since we're setting up directly on the student's iPad. Finally, the last thing we want to do to turn it all on is click on App and Website Activity, and then turn on App and Website Activity. Once it's on, you'll see the graph containing screen time reports and a button at the bottom to turn off App and Website Activity. For screen time to be really effective in managing your student's iPad usage, you'll definitely want to use lock screen time settings. Select this button above Share Across Devices and enter a passcode. These settings will then be locked behind that passcode. I would recommend entering an email here so you can recover the screen time passcode should you forget it, but for our purposes, I'll just go ahead and skip this. To get started with restrictions, we'll want to scroll to the top and select Downtime. Downtime allows you to set schedules of when the iPad is inaccessible. You can either hit the Turn on Downtime Until Tomorrow button at the top to do it immediately, or set specific schedules by checking the radio button for Scheduled. Here you can have it every day or only certain days during the week. Each day can have its own time range. The Turn on Downtime Until Schedule button allows you to invert the schedule and only have it available during those specific times rather than those being downtimes. Now, back on the main page, we'll look at app limits just below downtime. Click Add Limit to start customizing your app limits. On the menu that appears, you can customize by category. Apple predefines all apps on the iPad into individual categories. You can check the box to select a category to limit, or hit the drop-down to see the individual app. You can then uncheck any individual apps you don't want to be added to the limits. Once you've finished customizing the categories, hit Next. On the next page, you can select the time limits that will apply every day, or you can hit Customize Days to set time limits for each individual day of the week. Select Add when you're ready to set your time limits. Now that this is set, any app in a category that is limited will not be available outside of the allotted time. Back again on the main page, we'll select Always Allowed. The Always Allowed section allows you to decide which apps will always be available even during downtime. The phone app cannot be removed for in case of emergencies, but Messages, FaceTime, and Maps can all be removed by hitting the red dash next to them and then Remove. You can also scroll down to the apps list and add any apps to be always allowed by hitting the green plus. In this case, I'll select Calculator because I want my student to have access to it during downtime while they do the homework. This is now set, and we can pop back to the first screen. Next, we'll look at content and privacy restrictions where we can manage content, apps, and settings. Tap the radio button to turn this feature on. Starting with iTunes and App Store purchases, we can outright stop installation of new apps and always require a password, and a few other settings there. In allowed apps and features, we can turn off any that we feel like are not necessary. We'll turn off Mail and Safari in this case. In App Store Media, Web, and Games, it allows us to change the settings of what's accessible in the App Store. In this case, music and podcasts, news and fitness are all explicit. We'll change that to clean, and we'll say only apps that have a rating of 12 plus are allowed. As a reminder, these settings are all unrestricted by default, so you will have to go in and change it yourself. In web content, we can set it to be only approved websites or limit just any adult websites. In only approved websites, we can swipe left on any existing websites to delete them. As a reminder, our content filter should catch all websites that are inappropriate, but if you do feel like your student is using an inappropriate website, please reach out to us and we will do our best to fix that. To add a website to this approved list, hit the Add Website button and then create a title, then put in the URL of the website. While our content filter should block most inappropriate sites, there are educational sites that we approve in our content filter you might want to lock down when your student is doing homework. An example of this is BrainPop and iReady are both educational sites that we use every day in our elementary schools. But BrainPop has some more fun and gamified features to the educational portion. So while at home, you might want your student only to have access to iReady. So we can remove BrainPop from this approved list here, even though it's approved in our content filter. But once you remove it here, your student will only be able to access iReady on their iPad. In the Game Center portion, these are settings involving anything categorized as a game. On our student iPads, this is unnecessary as games are blocked, but if it's a personal iPad, we recommend going through these and making changes. Intelligence and Siri settings change the AI and machine learning settings on the device on whether or not you're allowed to interact with it or make any changes to the settings. In most cases, things like writing tools would be a good idea to turn off. Scrolling down to the privacy section, we can make changes to Apple's privacy settings. This section deals with what permissions these services have and what applications can make changes to them or if the user can make changes to them. Each setting is different, and I recommend going through them one by one yourself to figure out how they work. At the bottom, we can change whether or not certain settings are allowed to be changed, such as passcode and Face ID and accounts. Again, recommend going through this one by one. In this same realm, we have communication safety. As mentioned before, our content filter should catch everything, but because no system is perfect, we do recommend turning on communication safety as an extra layer of protection to keep your student from seeing anything they shouldn't. If you see that they are accessing inappropriate things, please reach out to network.admins@mercerislandschools.org and we will resolve the issue as quickly as we can. This has been a tutorial on setting up screen time. If you have any issues or questions, please reach out to network.admins@mercerislandschools.org or create a tech ticket with your student's building's tech team.